Okay, today we'll start on Daf Lamed Gimel, right on the top. They'll drop behind. So, see the second line. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. Learning Lulnish Masal Gold Baspar Yaman and San Sebastian and Shlema. Ben Sarah Gadal gets always it's better parents and for Jimmy. I am Ben Sarah. Jimmy. Thank you. What happened to your Shasta?
I just decided to go with the book because Review Shabbos has a lot of advantages.
Is that your own or is that okay? You got the whole shots? Just a volume at a time. Okay, Dini Mamnes Machzirin. We learned that when it comes to monetary laws, if the judge feels that he didn't do it correctly, he can go back and rejudge the case, whether it's for the person's benefit or to make him guilty. When it came to capital punishment, if the judge feels that he didn't do it correctly, he can only go back to save him. He can't go back to make him guilty. Problem is, for a minute, we have a contradiction. If the judgment was done and he made innocent the one that was really guilty, or he made guilty someone that was really innocent, this is a brisa, and this brisa is going to contradict our Mishnah. Timia Satar, he made impure something that was really tar, or Tir Satame, or he made pure something that was really impure. Masha Asa, whatever he did is done. And then the judge has to pay from his own money to rectify what he did. So how could you tell me before that he just says, oops, I made a mistake, let's redo the case? Here we says that he doesn't say he made a mistake, said it's done already, and he has to pay for it. You can't just retract and retry the case. It's a contradiction.
Before, I think they made a difference about the expert judges.
Rabbi Yosef, so says Rabbi Yosef, like Kasha. This is the first answer. It depends if he's an expert judge. If he's an expert judge, then he can say, I know that I made a mistake and I'm redoing the case. And we have to trust him that he knows that he made the mistake and he can redo it. But if he's not an expert judge, then what do you mean you're going to redo the case? How do you know that you're correct now if you didn't know you were correct before? We don't trust you now that you made a mistake. So maybe the last one. So therefore, if you told already someone that he's chayiv, or it's told him that he's pater, and now you say, no, I changed my mind. We have to go back and redo this. The person can say, but you told me I'm exempt. And the guy says, yeah, the judge says, well, but I changed my mind. He says, well, how do I know that you're correct now? But if it's an expert, then he can say, no, I know that I missed something, and then we'll have to take it back. Okay, so we have an explanation. The Mishnah would be talking about when he takes it back would be a mumcha. The Brisa where he says where he can't take it back would be an eina mumcha, not an expert. The Gemara asks, mumcha machzirin, and if he's an expert, he can take it back and retry the case. Vakatani, but it was taught in a Brisa, maybe a Mishnah. That if he was an expert, he doesn't have to pay. Now, 1 second. You just told me that if he's a mumcha, he can retry the case. Now you're telling me that if he's a mumcha, he doesn't retry the case, but he doesn't have to pay for the damages that he caused because he did nothing wrong. He studied and he he made a verdict based on whatever he knew, or whatever came to his mind. If he forgot something, that's not his fault. He was a mumch, he's an expert. If he wouldn't be an expert and he did a case, so then we would say he's obligated to pay because he was negligent. He shouldn't be trying cases. He doesn't know what he's doing. But over here, he did his best. So he doesn't have to pay. But this doesn't fit with the way we just explained that if he's an expert, he can retry the case. Here we're saying that he doesn't have to pay, but he doesn't retry the case. Rav Nachman, so Rav Nachman comes in and gives us another answer. Really, what's going on over here is, when do we say that he has to pay? Is talking about there is an expert judge in town that's telling him that he made a mistake. So it's not that we're trusting him that he made a mistake. We're trusting the elder. If this elder says that he made the mistake, this senior judge says that he made a mistake, so then we allow him to redo the case. But if he doesn't have that senior judge there, then he can't redo the case, because the other person's going to say, maybe you made a mistake in the second time.
Yeah. I was wondering, would this rabbi be there with him during the second proceeding?
I'm not sure.
Because I was thinking that new things might come up, and then you might have a question about the new things.
Right. So Hill is asking if this judge has to be there at the second proceeding. It doesn't say that, but we have to figure out what just happened here. We now have three types of halachas. Either you retry the case, or you don't retry the case and you have to pay from your house, or you don't retry the case and you don't have to pay. Now, which one goes to which, according to Rav Nachman? If there's a gadol imena b'chachma, then you retry the case. If there's ein gadol imena b'chachma, then you don't retry the case. But when do you have to pay? Maybe that's when you have to pay. And when do you not retry the case and not have to pay? I guess it would work like this. It's not clear. In Rav Nachman, when Rav Nachman's talking, is he talking about where the person is a mumcha or he's not a mumcha? And there's a gadol imena. Let's say he's talking about where he's a mumcha, and there's nevertheless a gadol imena. So if there's a gadol imena, so then he retries the case, and of course he's exempt because he retries the case. He just redoes it. There's no harm done, right? Just redoes the case. If there's no gadol imena and he's a mumcha, so then he would not have to pay for what he does. When would he? So in other words, Rav Nachman is really accepting Rabbi Yosef's answer also, that there is a difference between an expert and not an expert. He's just throwing in one more detail over here, that if he's an expert, he still doesn't retry the case. He only retries the case if there's a greater judge that tells him that he needs to redo it.
Here they go into the whole thing of it's like a greater judge like himself. If it's like, I guess, like the head of this president is like more knowledgeable than the head of the other president, or this like a cumulative, like,
oh, a bunch of judges together. That doesn't seem like from the Gemara that's what it's referring to.
it's talking about the expression greater in knowledge and
Yeah, it adds in a number. It's true.
so they send
Rashi doesn't seem to have that. Okay.
Would they send him to the court to be more knowledgeable? I think it makes it easier.
I don't know.
There's a note here. It says Rashi and Rabbeinu Hananel explain that a greater court can retry the case and reverse the verdict of the first court. If there is no greater court, the verdict cannot be reversed, and the court must reimburse the wrong party. And the Rif and other Sephardic early commentaries explain the Gemara in the opposite manner. If there is a greater court, the first court cannot reverse its decision. But if there is no greater court, this court.
Why should that be? It's giving me another shot from the Rif that it says that learns this Gemara exactly the opposite. We learned it according to Rashi and Ben Chanal. What he threw in over there is that it's the greater court that's actually doing the case. You're going to the Court of Appeals, and you're redoing the case in the other court. I didn't see that in the text. Oh, Rashi actually says that. That's how they're learning Rashi. Not that he's the one that informs him, but he actually retries the case. That's the way they're reading Rashi at the Koran. This higher judge is the one that redoes the case according to what he read. Yeah, you don't have to read Rashi like that. You can read Rashi. That this higher judge, he retracts from what that person said, and therefore that person redoes the case. You can different ways of reading this. Rav Sheshes says we're up to the third interpretation over here already because of this contradiction. Depends what type of mistake he made. He made a mistake in something that's very clearly written. So then he retracts and he redoes the case. It was an obvious mistake. We have to redo the case. However, the other option is when he has to pay for it, that's when he was made a mistake. B'shikol hadas. B'shikol hadas means in his own rationale, not in something that was clear, not something that was clearly written. Amar Rav Sheshes, Amar Rav Asi. Rav Sheshes says in the Rav Asi, Tab b'dvar Mishnah. Someone makes a mistake with something that was clearly in a Mishnah. Pleasure. Yeah, you retract and redo the case. Tab b'shikol hadas, but if you make a mistake in logic, then you don't redo the case. What do you consider Dvar Mishnah? What do you consider something that was clear? Do you mean only Mishnayos, literally? What about if it's a brisa from Reb Chia and Rabbi Shia? Amlayin says, Rav Ashi says the same halacha would apply. What's that aleph over there? It's not Ravina and Rav Ashi, it's Rav Hamnuna and Rav Sheshes. Okay. I feel a bit Rav Shmuel. Let's say it wasn't a brisa. Let's say it was the teachings of Rav and Shmuel. Now, Rav and Shmuel, according to Rashi, Rashi says that they paskind from their own logic, from their own svara. It's not a Mishnah, it's just a svara, something logical. Amalayin said if a statement of Rav and Shmuel, then that would also be considered a mistake where you retry the case. Then this could either be Ravina or Rav Ashi, or it could be Rav Hamnuna to Rav Sheshes. It says, what about if it's a teaching that I said over, a teaching that you said over? What do you think? We're cutting the reeds in the marsh. We're just nothing. We're also something. If we make a statement and someone makes a mistake on something that we said, also they retract and they retry the case. That's the case. And we would have said today, what do we, chop liver? Right? So the Gemara, if that's the case, then what do you consider logical? That basically every rabbi that says something is considered a Dvar Mishnah. Rav Papa says, where we're talking about, so if you have two Tanoim, two Mishnaic authors, or two Amiraim, that they're arguing. Okay. We don't have any rules of how the halacha goes. Does it go this way? Does it go that way? Where was that Daf Yud Zayin? Where do we have all those rules of how we pass him? No, that wasn't the rules. That was just when it says Amri Nardoi. I think somewhere coming up, we're going to have a bunch of rules.
We went over the difference. The capital case.
There's going to be a whole page of who the halacha goes like whenever there's a machlekes.
Oh, we had that already.
Yeah, we had that.
Where was that?
It wasn't good.
So maybe it was Yud Aleph. Yeah, very good.
Oh, just came to it.
Very good. Yudala. No, let's try your base. No, let's try your Gimel. I'm gonna tell you, remember? Page that had all the rules of who the halacha goes like.
Oh, right, yeah. This one. This part.
No.
Oh, here.
those
It's
are just-
17B.
No, 17b is not who the halacha goes like. 17b was just
Family.
who
You're allowed to judge.
no, whenever it says this word, this term, Rabbi Seinu Shabbat, it's referring to Rav and Shmuel. Rabbi Seinu Shabbat is Rababa. That doesn't tell me who the halacha is like. There was another page somewhere where it said. Okay, so whatever the case is, we don't. Here we have a machlekes, and it doesn't say who the halacha is like. V'ikri babet kechad minayo, and he passed like one of them. It's not clear who the halacha is like, so he passed like one. However, if you take a look at the way that it was being brought down, it seems like it should have followed the other approach. So he made a mistake in how the halacha should be. But that was based on his own logic. Kind of shikul hadas. That's what it means. Shikul hadas. Shikul hadas means to weigh the what is it? Shikul means to weigh, and das means to weigh it with your intellect. Okay. Weighing of opinions. Okay. Esvei Rav Hamnun Rav Sheshes. Now Rav Hamnun asked Rav Sheshes. It's interesting. If this would have been the way the Bach adjusts Ravina and Ravashi, and it was actually a conversation not between Ravina and Ravashi. It's a conversation between Rav Hamnun and Rav Sheshes, where Rav Sheshes is the one that was responding that every statement that someone makes is going to be a Dvar Mishnah, and it was only how to decide between two statements, which was Shikul Hadas. Now Rav Hamnun asks Ravashi, Maisa beparashal Beis Menachem. Look at where we're sitting right now in Beis Menachem. There was a cow of Beis Menachem. Some take out those words. Shari Tefillah, they put in. I'm kidding. Okay, Shenit La'im Shalah. It had a hysterectomy. Is that what it's called? Hysterectomy. They took out the womb. Bechila Reb Tarfon Leklavin. Reb Tarfon said, such a procedure would make the animal a treifa. It can survive for 12 months. And so he said, it's treif, feed it to the dogs. That's what you do with treifa food. You feed it to the dogs, right? You know the story, Shalom, with this? There was a guy that the Rav said that treifa food, treifa meat, it says in the Torah, you give it to the dog. So he, whenever he had a shaila, he would always ask the Rav, what's the, if it's kosher or not. Anyway, after the Rav said that, so he had dogs, and he would see if the dogs ate it, then it was treif. If they didn't eat it, then it would be kosher. So he stopped coming to the Rav. Anyway, after a few months, he comes back to the Rav. The Rav said, where were you? You used to always come with questions. He says, no, you said I went to the dog. So he said, so why did he come back? He said, the dog was too machmer. So,
You couldn't benefit.
no, you can. You can benefit.
They said it to the boys all the time.
Yeah. There's other things. Yeah,
bus
bus of challah you can't benefit. Milk and meat you can't benefit from, but other things you can feed to animals. To the maid. The story came to the sages in Yavne, Vitirua, and they said, "What are you talking about? This is not treif, hysterectomy. This is a kosher animal." Shamar to the Saraifa. What's that base over there? Mipnei Shamar, because to the Saraifa, this doctor to this. He said, "Ein parav chazira yitzis malachsandr shal mitzrayim alon ken chayt chaneim shala kadesh leitelet." They do this all the time. In Alexandria, they don't want you to breed these animals. They want to have the monopoly on it. So they take out the womb. And you see, it survives. So this is not a treifa. This is a kosher animal. Amar of Tarfon says, Holcha chamarcha Tarfon. Tarfon, you lost your donkey. That's an expression like you lost your marbles. You lost your property. Basically your yeah. Yeah. You basically Reb Tarfon is saying, yeah, I'm gonna have to pay for this one. The halacha follows. Oh, the halacha follows is 27a. Let's take a look at that. The halacha follows. Oh no, that has to do with Abaya and Rava. That's a machlekes, Abaya and Rava. And there's also one there, machlekes Reb Yossi and Reb Meir. No, I'm thinking about a whole page where it says. Maybe it's coming up. Okay.
So the reason these cows were no uteruses because they didn't want them to be breeding.
Right.
That's basically the same reason they sell seedless. They used to sell seedless, pitless eggs or something. So that this place. I heard that by Rabbi Stefan. I listened to the show.
So Dr. Stein came in and said that from Rabbi Stefanski that they would sell pitless dates also, so that you're not able to plant them.
The whole
Interesting.
idea of making
What is the idea behind the seedless one?
The seedless one was so that you could eat it without spitting out the seeds.
Yeah, that's in the old days. In the new days, they make hybrids. You can't take any of the seeds of the hybrid because of the original mama and papa. So it's like selling you neutered seeds. It's
like
common
what
practice.
the donkey or the which
The
one?
mule, no,
The
not
mule.
animals, the mule plants. So it's just common that you can't plant the seeds, but what are you eating? Because that itself is cross, and crosses are patented in the originals. No, to give those out, those seeds.
So if you plant it, it won't grow.
Yeah, that's a special kind.
Well, okay.
Corn.
So Amalei Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says to Reb Tarfon. Tarfon feels like he just lost his donkey because now he's going to have to pay for this. Says Paterata, you're exempt. You don't have to pay. You're a mumcha. You did your best, and you don't have to pay. And if it's true according to what you said, why did he tell him that you're a mumcha? That's why you don't have to pay. Why don't you just tell him that if it's a Toya B'Dvar Mishnah, there's a Mishnah that says Nitla Eim Kshera, that if the womb is taken out, the animal is kosher. We're about 4 lines from the white lines up.
We went to the wrong page.
So Toya B'Dvar Mishnah, he's made a mistake. So let him just redo the case. Why does he have to tell him that you're a mumcha? Just redo the case. But Toya B'Dvar Mishnah Chayzer. The Gemara answers, he was telling him one thing, and he meant that there's besides for this, there's also another reason. First of all, you can retry the case and say that it's kosher. And even if it was shikla, that's a weighing of opinions. You're a mumcha. The chalamum is pater milashalim, and you don't have to pay. So Rabbi Akiva tells Reb Tarfon that you got your donkey. You can keep your donkey. You don't have to pay for it. Now,
But Shikla does weight of your opinion, not opinions. Because you come to right. It's
I'm not sure.
going on one hand, on the other hand,
Yeah.
Why couldn't
But the way we explained it is that you're weighing opinions of different sages of
Yeah,
which one you want to follow, and you're weighing it in your opinion. So I don't know.
It's
I don't
just a
know.
matter of
I don't know.
semantics.
Is the shikla das mean
But it's
your mind?
You're coming to a conclusion.
Yeah, is that how they translate it there?
They use the word opinion.
Das, it says deliberation.
Deliberation usually sounds like two.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, Reb Naftali.
How can he retry the case?
He told
The
them it
cow-
was straight.
The
put
cow's
it in-
dead. The cow's dead.
Yeah. The cow's dead. I guess they shechted it, and when they opened it up, they found there was no womb there. So everything was good.
Yeah, but how can he retry it? He can't reverse it. The cow's not there.
No, but he said that it was treif. So they put it in the treif freezer, and they're gonna sell it. So he said no, try the case.
I thought this case was that it had already been fed to the butcher and given to the dogs. So
Well,
that
that's coming up.
doesn't,
That's
oh,
coming up.
am I getting confused?
That's coming up. At this point, we think like you just
Okay.
slap the label on it, kosher. The plumber, put the
With the metal clip.
the metal clip. Just put the
They
metal
still
clip
have
in. I haven't seen that in a long time.
They have to.
Chickens.
Yeah?
They have to. How would they keep track of the medical records of each animal?
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about
We
on
used
the
to buy
kosher.
the chicken, like a
The
roast
kosher
there
chicken
was
always had a metal clip on it.
You have to take it off.
I haven't seen them in a while. Maybe because now they put it in plastic bags or something. Well, Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak l'Rava. Rav Nachman Yitzchak says to Rava, "My kamaisav Rav Hamnuna l'Rav Sheshes mipara." What was he asking him? That it's Taya b'dvar Mishnah and just retry the case. He already fed it to the dogs. You can't retry the case. You can't get it back out of the dog's mouth. This is what he meant. If you would say that a Taya b'dvar Mishnah, you can't retract, you can't retry the case. Al makam dina. Then we would say, listen to this. Then we would say that your verdict is the verdict, and you caused the loss, and you would have to pay. I know the kamafchid Reb Tarfon. That's why Reb Tarfon would have been afraid that he would lost his donkey now because he's going to have to pay for it. The Kamalayiyu and Rebbe Kiva told him, that you're exempt because you're a mumcha. But if you say that you could retract, you retry the case, then Reb Tarfon could say kilam dila have a para. If the cow still existed, dina chalav dina. My judgment is not a real judgment. It's not my fault now. Like this, I didn't, and you didn't do anything. Rabbi Kiva was telling Reb Tarfon. Hashtanami like lamamdas, and now we would just say that it's your fault, butcher, for feeding it to the dogs, because that verdict could have been retracted, and Reb Tarfon would be exempt. So why Rabbi Kiva could have told him that he's a Taya b'dvar Mishnah. There's a clear Mishnah that says that nitlaim ksheira, that if the womb is taken out, the animal is still kosher, and it would be the butcher's fault, and Reb Tarfon wouldn't have to pay it all. So then we answer that he meant to tell him both things. Either way, you're exempt. Okay, now Rav Chisda goes back in the Hilchos Streifus. There was all these interesting cases. They found an animal without a heart. Remember that? Remember I think we had in Chulin.
That animal had no Rahmanis on it.
Naftali is shaking his head in disapproval.
All right, don't write it down.
Okay.
The case that they came to out back, and the judge was responsible, would have to pay the difference between the paid cow and the cow.
Yeah. Well, if they sold it, yeah. If he wouldn't have been a mumcha. Okay. Rav Chisda goes back to our original contradiction over here. One case said that you retry the case. Our Mishnah says you retry the case. Bryce says that he has to pay for it. The judge has to pay for it. He doesn't retry. Rav Chisda says, here's where the judge actually took the money from one person and gave it to the other person. So he was like a mazik biyadayim. He was like, he did damage with his hands. Actually, he got up from his seat and handed the money over to the other person from this person. Over here, when it says that you retry the case, is when he didn't actually take it. That was just something that they did. The litigants themselves exchanged money, and then he says, "Okay, let's go back." The Gemara says, "1 second." Yeah. So no, it has to do with how active the judge was in carrying out the verdict. If the judge was active in carrying out the verdict, so then you don't retry the case, and we consider him as someone that did damage. He has to pay for it. But if the judge wasn't active in carrying out the verdict, then we would just say, well, okay, now he'll go back and he'll say a different verdict, and then they'll just hand the money back. So in that video, the no kosher meat, that's a funny video. So they're trying to get a minion, and this guy says they made a bet that they're gonna get a minion or do something. They had 9 people. So this guy says, "What do you mean? I'm Jewish." Said, oh, they hand the money over to the other. He says, "No, my father was Jewish." They hand the money back. He says, "No, but it's something." The money is like going back and forth. So Bishleima Chayev Esazakai, if he made the innocent guilty, so then we understand what does it mean that he took the money from the wrong person and he gave it, because he made him guilty when he shouldn't have been. It was really innocent. So then the example is Shanatal V'Nasan Biyad. He took the money and he handed it over to the other guy. But if he told him that he's not guilty and he doesn't have to pay, so there was no transfer of money. It was a claim against this fellow, right? The Reuben has a claim against Shimon, and the judge says, Shimon, you don't have to pay. So what does it mean he took by hand? What does it mean he took by hand and gave it? That the Malay, he told him, Paterata, he said, you're exempt. But you said that you have to take it by hand for this verdict to be done, and then you have to pay for it. Gemara says, Kivan Damar Paterata. Once he said Paterata, once he said that you're exempt, that's as if he took it by hand. Gemara says, well, you just extended this a little bit too far. So then let's go back to our Mishnah and try to read this in. The Mishnah said, when it comes to monetary matters, that you can retry the case, whether it's to his detriment, whether it's to make him guilty, whether it's to make him innocent. I can understand when you're retrying it to make him innocent. Originally he said, Originally he said, you're guilty, you have to pay. But he didn't take it by hand. The judge didn't mix in to actually transfer the money, he himself. Okay. So then you retry the case, like we said. If he doesn't take him, you retry the case. But what would be the case where he wants to make him guilty now? That means before he said that you're innocent, that you don't have to pay. When we just said that if you say that you're innocent and you don't have to pay, that's considered like you took it by hand. But once you take it by hand, then you don't retry the case. You just told me that you retry the case whether he said he's innocent or whether he said he's guilty. It must have been that he said you're exempt. But now you told me, that that's considered like you transferred the money by hand. And then so therefore we do not retry the case. So it's not going to fit this answer of saying if you're innocent, that's considered like the judge just transferred the money. The Gemara says, it's really one case. It's not either or. Dini mamanas, we will retry the case to make him innocent, which means we would retry the case to have the money go back to the other person, which is to the detriment of the other party. The kavasei gabi nefashis. Okay, so the Gemara says, okay, so now let's compare this, because in our Mishnah you compared monetary cases to capital cases. So capital cases, you said you don't retract if it's to make him guilty. Machzir and l'schos, we could retract, we could retry the case if it's to make him innocent. Then machzir and l'chayva, but you don't retract to make him guilty, and which means machzir and l'schos, to retract to make him innocent is chos kreidasa. That's when it's only to him, right? But we don't, right? Vein machzir and l'chayva, but you don't retract to make him guilty, which according to the way in comparison to what we just learned in monetary cases, in machzir and lechayva didn't mean to make him guilty, meant to make him innocent, but there was a guilt to someone else. That's the way we just translated in monetary cases. So that's what it has to mean by capital cases. If that's the case, but I don't understand. If you're making him innocent, so who would that be? Who would be becoming guilty when you're freeing this person from capital punishment? Who does that make guilty? To whose detriment is that? It says Holy Kasha, that's not a problem. It's the detriment of the relative. The relative would like to see this person dead.
This is, what's going on now with the release of the Palestinians in exchange.
Yeah.
That I was reading something that the families of people who were murdered by these prisoners, they understand about the release, but it's so,
Right.
heartbroken that they're letting back the murderer of their family member
Right. Yeah.
free.
The Gemara says this is a little bit of a problem because what you're doing now is you're saying, we have a court case. Shimon killed Reuven. Reuven has a relative, Levi. Okay, so we say that we found Shimon guilty. We say that we have a reason to retry the case and say Shimon is innocent. Can't retry the case because Levi is going to be upset about it. So the Gemara says, "Mishum dechayv say the gayel adam katlin leilahai," because he has a relative that's going to be upset about it. So now we have to kill Shimon when really we could have retried the case and found that Shimon is innocent. Says V'oid, and then another problem is my bain. If you're going to tell me that it's all one case, and then why in the Mishnah did it say bain be this, bain be chayva, bain l'schos? It's really all the same case. Where it says kasha, that's a question. Okay, Ravina says Kagain Shaya Biyada Mashkin V'Nathamena. The way we'll explain it like this is that how will there be a case where what we're looking for is a case where he was originally innocent, and now he's saying that he's guilty. We're talking about by the monetary case. And the question is, we said it was Nasan biyad, that he took the money by hand. He said, if you said before that he was innocent, then you didn't have to transfer any money. There was no money. So he said, no, by saying innocent, that's considered transfer. Said, no. That didn't work because when we try to compare it to the case of the capital punishment, it doesn't match. So what we're doing now is we're saying, when we said that he doesn't have to pay, but there was a collateral. So he took the collateral, he took the collateral and handed it back. So the judge actually did something by saying that he's innocent, he doesn't have to pay. He handed the collateral back to the borrower. So then it was to someone's detriment.
Was it normal that the judge would grab whatever it was in between the possessions?
Yeah.
Doesn't seem...
Yeah, because it could be that the way they did the case was it was a bag of money or something. It says, this is the money that we're arguing about. They put it on the table. And the judge, after the case was over, he said, okay, this is your money.
That basically made it like a stronger...
That made a case that it was the judge that caused the damage.
But it wouldn't make the difference because he was like, it made it like he was more sure about the outcome. Like, because even if the defendant gives the other one the money.
Yeah, if the defendant gave the other one the money, then we just say, okay, that was a mistake. We'll retry the case.
But anyway, they don't do it because they want to. They just do it because the judge tells them.
Right.
I don't understand why so much of a difference when the judge would do it himself with his hand. If otherwise, it's like they're clear.
Any comments on Hill's question? Hill's asking, that what's the difference if the judge did it by hand or if the judge just gave a verdict and they did it? Either way, they're doing it because he instructed, and he's not considered a gairim, right? Like causing that he should be exempt if that's the issue, because it's more than a gairim. He was his verdict made the rule that.
It's like he becomes the mazik when he does it by hand. Now, why is he considered the mazik? That's really the question. And
It's the same like Meshasa Bois Kelev. You have to do it specifically when it's a hezek.
say that again, Chaim, please.
Chaim is
Chaim only speaks once.
Chaim,
If you don't catch it, that's you on you.
Chaim is referencing if someone instigates a dog to bite. So what was the halacha over there? He's pater. Even by a snake?
I wish it was whatever.
So Chaim is saying it's referring to it's like a grama. It's like causing a damage, not directly doing it. What's the difference in retrying the case? I can understand why he's exempt from paying, but if we hold that you could retry the case, so just retry the case. If you could retry the case when you cause the damage and you don't do it directly, so retry the case when you do it directly. It's also why does that switch? I'm not sure. I didn't go through it.
Well, he can't retry the case. He's no gaya now. He's no gaya now.
Because he's going to be chayav. Yeah. Okay. And how would we have this also by Timias? We're talking about where there would be a detriment to this one or benefit to that one. Timias Atar, what would be the case if he said something was tameh and was really tahar? The agi by sheretz. He said, "Oh, this is so tameh. Look, he touched it to a sheretz in the court." And it turns out that it was really tahar. Now it's his fault, right? If he said something was pure and it was really tameh, so what kind of damage was that? He took the food that he thought was tar and mixed it back into his other food, and that made everything else tameh. So he actually caused the damage. Okay. Dinin nefasha is when it comes to capital punishment. Tanarabana was taught in the Braisa. I mean, how do you know that if someone leaves the court guilty? And someone says, I have a reason why he's innocent. How do you know you bring him back in and retry the case? Don't kill someone that's innocent. And it could be that he's innocent. How do you know that someone leaves the court zakai guilty? He leaves the court innocent. And someone says, I have a reason why he's guilty. How do you know you don't bring him back? Someone that was a tzaddik, he's not a tzaddik, he's guilty. He's really guilty. But he was tzaddik bedin. He was vindicated. This is where the Alter Rebbe gets that from. That I think where the Alter Rebbe has in chapter 1, he writes about there's a tzaddik, a real tzaddik, and then there's a tzaddik bedin, that he was vindicated. Not that he's really a tzaddik, mitzvah shema tayar. If you see Rashi, tzaddik, mashmash, and it's tzaddik bedin. He was vindicated, even though he's not clean. He's just not been exonerated. Rav Simi Barashi. Rav Simi Barashi says, "V'chiluf l'mesis," and the opposite is by a mesis. Will someone that convinces other people to worship idols will actually bring them back to find them guilty. Don't have any compassion or cover up for him. Rav Kana Masni. Rav Kana has a different teaching. He says, "Mechi harag targeno." He learns it from a different verse that he should be killed. Boimine Rav Zera Rav Sheshas. Rav Zera asks Rav Sheshas, sorry. Chayve Golias, it's either Mai or Minayan. See, we just said a contrast between monetary cases where sometimes you could retry the case and capital cases where you don't retry the case to make him guilty. What about if he was found innocent from, he doesn't have to go to exile, but someone says that I can bring logic, bring a proof that he really should be chayiv. Is that considered a capital case, exile, or is that considered a monetary case? The Gemara says, Asir Ritzeach Ritzeach. We're going to learn that it's a capital case because we have a verse that says Ritzeach by Galus. We have a verse that says Ritzeach by capital. So we're going to do a Gzera Shava. Chaybe Malkus Menayin. Let's say it flashes. What type of case is that? What category does that go under? Asir Russia. We'll learn that it's considered capital case because it says the word Russia there, and we'll have the same. One verse says that person is guilty of death, and the other one says that he's getting malchus, and we'll learn one from the other. Tanya Nami Achi will also taught it. It was also taught in Brisa. Chayve malchus min chayve galus minayin. How do you know that that's considered capital? Asir Ritzeach Ritzeach. Chayve malchus minayin. How do you know that lashes is considered capital? Asir Russia. Okay. So you don't bring him back to become guilty in either of those cases as well. And you don't bring him back for guilt. I'm Rav Chia Barabba, famous student of Rabbi Yechon, and he says, that's only if the mistake was something that was not so clear. It was something that the Tzedukim would not agree to. That means the Tzedukim agree to everything that's in the Torah Shabbat. If it's very clearly written in the text of the Torah, so then we would retract if it was even to make him guilty. Then this is something that you have to go to, that even someone in school would know this, and we retract for that. That's interesting that's the expression. Now Rav Chia Barab asked Rabbi Yechon the following question. Let's say they made a mistake with adulterers. And he said that the only one that gets killed is the man, not the woman. That was the mistake. Really, it's both. But the judge said that it's only the man. Amalei, he said, while the fire is burning, zilkaitz karach betzali, go cut your pumpkin and cook it. While the fire is hot, strike, right? So, which meant, I think what he means to say is that once you're asking this question, I think you should put this clearly into your memory, that this is something that's you would have to go back and retry the case. Rami said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, that if you make a mistake about that, if the only one party is guilty, you have to retry the case, and you make her guilty as well. So then what would be a case where you don't retry the case? We're looking for here somewhere where you don't retry the case because it would be something that's not so obvious to the Tzedukim. So what would that be? They had relations, but it was not in a atypical manner, unnatural manner, and that would be.
That was the Rabbanan circuit.
But that was the Rabbanan learn it from the pasuk. It says Mishkavei Yisha, the layings. How to say that, of a woman, and that's that plural tells me that both of them are going to be the same punishment. But the Tzedukim didn't have that. So then you don't retry a case like that. Then that's then that would be a case that was paskin, that she's exempt, and then you would leave it as exempt. Or maybe he's exempt. Right?
It says that
Or quits. Right. So let's leave it over here.
So where did we name it?
I'm holding by Dini Maman Sakal.
So it's still one document.
Two. Still two daf behind.
What was the movie?
Thank you.